Howdy, y'all. Today I want to go over some of the, in my opinion, sleeper cards of blue. Um, and as we go into Unleashed, maybe pick up some of these, because a lot of these on the list are going to be much better in Unleashed than they are right now. But yeah, also just some cards on here I think have gotten overlooked in the meta, and I think can definitely be fun to play. Definitely will catch a lot of opponents off guard. First one, and if you saw me put in my Anomaly Lux video, you'll see Sprite Call makes an appearance, which is, I don't think, played in any deck other than Teemo, maybe? But I think this card has a lot of value that people aren't really giving it credit for. So it's a 3 energy, 3 might unit that's already accelerated, no power cost. That on its own is pretty dang good. Of course, it goes away. You can conquer, but you can't get a hold point with it. So there's that big caveat, but that's a lot of energy, and that's a lot of might you can throw around, potentially turn one. If you go second, you get 3 runes. You can play this turn one and get a conquer on the first turn. And also, it kind of challenges your opponent, especially if you're playing against purple, right? They have all these counteract, all these combat tricks and stuff, but do they really want to spend that on a card that's not going to stick around that long? And if they do, great, you wasted one of their spells on, a card that's going to disappear, something that's really not that high value. And if they don't, sick, you got a point. So it's kind of challenging them to think a different way than they might normally. Also, it's a spell that makes a unit that can be played on your opponent's turn for free. You know, that's a lot of keywords that proc a lot of different things, a lot of different spell effects, like Ravenbloom, Blue Victor, and then, making a unit can make it the target of something like a Death Grip, or if you're playing like back to back, right? Where you need multiple units to apply more buffs. Um, this can be buffed by Rally the Troops, right? Like, there's a lot of interactions that this has with other cards that it doesn't really seem like it would on the surface. Um, and also, a huge way to use this is turn one, right? Your opponent goes first, they play like a treasure hunter. You play a sprite call. Um, you can advance yours onto the battlefield you don't want the treasure hunter to take. And then, your opponent has to say, okay, well, I'm not going to win against the sprite call, I'll go to the other one. So you're controlling which battlefield they take, which can lead to a lot of different things. There's a lot of interactions that can come from that. Generally, if you're playing a control style, which typically blue does, you want to be able to control where your opponent goes. And this is one of the tools that it's actually surprisingly good at that. Just as a side note, this is 3 extra damage in a combat, right? It's a hidden card. You flip it over. That's 3 damage. Um, Instead of playing Wages of Pain, where you have to target an enemy and pay a deflect cost potentially, um, this is a way of going around that. You don't get the gold generation, but you get the gist. The next one is Mundo. I am a big advocate for Mundo. I think Mundo is the most slept card in all of Riftbound. I think it does not get the credit he deserves. This is pretty much the only unit in blue, in my opinion, that can anchor really anything. It's just so dang good. It's huge. Pretty much anything more than 4 cards are in your trash. I think this is useful, or I think this is value. Um, it's just, it can get absolutely massive. The later and later into the game this goes, the more resources you exhaust from your opponent, the less they're going to be able to deal with something like this. There are definitely some matches that I've had where it's really down to the wire, and I'm like, all right, gonna throw out the Mundo, and my opponent goes, damn, like, I don't have a way of dealing with this. Like, game's yours. Let's go next. Because genuinely, if you're out of options, you're out of kill spells, and you know it, you're not going to overcome what is the giant body of Mundo. And also, I just know there's a baited hook angle. I know it. It's out there. I just haven't figured it out. I think there's a way to do something like with Victor, a baited hook deck that leads into this. I haven't quite figured it out. I think maybe with Galio existing, it might be possible. In the next set, we'll see. I know there's an angle in there. I haven't been able to figure it out. But if any of you guys have, please let me know because I'm itching. I just know it's possible. We have the technology. I just haven't figured it out. So this card, obviously, it's not actually in blue, but typically, if you're running blue, you're running a more control style deck, which means this battlefield will be pretty dang useful for you. And I don't see many people really running on it too often at all. Um, but yeah, having it so you cannot score at this battlefield into your third turn um, is kind of slept on. Like Valmont is great for dealing with purple decks, but this specifically is great for dealing with aggro decks because if your opponent is only able to score on one battlefield, they're only able to hold on one battlefield. It stops the bleeding if they happen to get the perfect hand and just roll out, got everything good to go. Um, that can be debilitating for a control style deck. However, this really gives you a couple turns to start setting up something. Because is your opponent going to move in and conquer onto a battlefield where there's no point? Any aggro deck, tempo deck, mid-range deck, they're not really going to be interested in something that's not going to get points because they need to score points before you build up, basically. So they're probably going to go to the other battlefield and build up somewhere else, which is great because now you can set up shop if you're playing a hold style or it depends on a lot of things. But I think this battlefield kind of gets forgotten because it doesn't generate card draw and doesn't do a crazy lot after the third turn, but it can really give you enough breathing room to establish a good early game and really follow through for the rest of the game. Sprite Mother, uh, most of the stuff I said for Sprite Call is going to apply here as well, but you have to do a little bit of math with me, okay? So think about it. Think about the 3/3 Sprite with Accelerate, okay? Keep that in mind. Now add to it a 1 energy, 1 power, 3 might unit. That's pretty good. 1 energy, 1 power, 3 might. That by the numbers, that's pretty dang good for Riftbound. Um, so keep that in mind, right? By the books, by the numbers. This is a good card, okay? Um, but in the current set, Sprite support isn't really there. But with Lilia, I think this is going to be a much better card. Being able to use this to discount her legend ability, I think it's going to be a really good combo. Because what is it? So it'd be 4 1 power, and then hers goes down to 3. So you're paying 7 energy for 6 accelerated might. That's pretty good. Um, that's a pretty good swing. You can push in and conquer a little bit with that. But we'll see. We'll see. It could be a very vital piece of the Lilia deck. All right, here we have just not Singularity. Don't get me wrong. Singularity is a fantastic card. For 6 energy, 2 power, you can do 12 damage to units at a battlefield or in the backline. That is really good. Don't get me wrong. However, because it's so good, everybody's playing around it. Everybody expects to see the Singularity coming. They've got tricks in mind that they're kind of, waiting for the Singularity to come. And then once your turn ends, they're like, oh, they're not going to use the thing. They don't have Singularity. I can do a little bit more, only for you to then, on their turn, do 6 damage, right? After they've played a unit or something, They've invested a little bit into their turn, obviously. They're just like Falling Comet. Everybody knows the card exists, but they don't really account for it as much as they account for something like the Singularity. And it can kill most units in the game. Pretty much most things are less or 6 might or less, unless they've got equipment on stuff. But, that's still good value. 5 energy for 6 damage. That's great. If you're playing Lux, there's a draw in there too. That's pretty decent value for something you can do on your opponent's turn, and it has no power cost, so it's not setting you back for your next turn. I don't know. It's just something that, like, by the numbers, I think is a little bit, it might be slightly inefficient, but because it can only target stuff on battlefields, but I still think it's a really good card that maybe should be considered being added to more things. Now we have the Heimer tech. Okay, you gotta stick with me. Okay, 3 energy, 1 power, Vanguard Armory. Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty much the best option for Heimerdinger in the current set. But you could also think, if you have a baited hook, this is another baited hook, but with a body that can earn a hold point. That's pretty cool. Or it could be another seal. Seals are always good. It's just wildly inefficient for those two things, and right now, pretty much the only thing it's good for is Vanguard Armory. However, with the Lilia deck, big with, okay? This can get actually cuckoo bananas, okay? You have the same ability as Lilia, so you can play a sprite and then discount sprite costs. That's pretty good. Being able to copy, Lilia has one of the best tap abilities in the game, really. So being able to copy that is going to do a lot more than, let's say, like copying Victor tap. That's not as good. A 3 might accelerate through 3. Again, I'm going with the sprite angle. That is good value. And if you think about it, so you can tap him for 4 to play 1 sprite. That discounts Lilia down to 3, so you tap her. Now that's 7 energy for 6 might accelerated. That's pretty good. What if there's already a sprite on the field? Or through the various ways of doing that with the gear or something, or with the sprite queen or something. Now this costs 3, and then that costs 2, right? So now you're paying 5 for 6 energy. What if you or 5 energy, 6 might, right? What if you have 2 Heimerdingers? One pays 4, one pays 3, Lilia pays 2. It just, the more Heimerdingers you have copying that ability at once, the better it is, okay? If you're with me, I think Heimerdinger is going to be a really big part of the Lilia deck. I went out and I bought 3 Heimerdingers already because I just know that that's the deck that I'm going to be running so much in Unleashed, and I think it'll be super fun. And I genuinely think it'll be a good deck. I'm currently trying to figure it out, but yeah, Heimer is a huge piece of something like that. I think he will only get more valuable as more tap abilities are added to the game, and it's just something you should always keep in mind, because no one remembers this card, and no one's going to see it coming. But with that, we've come to the end of my little list of mind cards, blue cards that have been, I feel, a little left to the wayside, unjustly. Let me know if you have any others that you'd like to add onto this list that I didn't. I tried to stay away from obviously good ones like Ravenbloom. I think no one really appreciates how dangerous a Ravenbloom can be. But I think in general, people think Ravenbloom's a good card anyway, so stuff like that I left off the list. But if you have a card and some rationale as to why you think it's goated, you tell me in the comments, and I will probably agree, because I will probably see your logic, and I love seeing cards and theories that are not mainstream being amplified. So let me know, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys later.